What's up, everyone? I'm Chris. This is Steve.
Hey guys.
We are here today. We're calling today loosely Brix and Brews.
Brix and Brews.
But we're here today to talk about the Brix season, which is just about to start. But let's just dive into it. So, Steve, the last workout of the 4 was released today. Workouts have been dropping for about a week now.
Yep.
Let's start with, what's your overall takeaway? Like, looking at it holistically, and then we'll kind of go down to the individual.
Yeah, so holistically, I see this one as a little more challenging in parts,
Okay.
right? Strength, for example, we've got some decent weights on the men's side. I think everything is nice because it's broken up into segments for a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you get stuck on something, there's still segments that you can do. So it still makes it very approachable for pretty much anybody that wants to give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what we are going to see is that because it's got different segments in some of the workouts, those people that are going to move on to the semifinals and then past that are going to have to get further along. It's not going to necessarily come down to how fast you can do everything. It's actually going to come down to how far you can go in some of these.
So, like, for example, strength that has the 3 different tiers.
Right.
How far can you get to the second tier? Can you get to the third tier?
Exactly. And I think that's going to be where we start seeing some of the differences versus in some of the previous years we've had it where it really hits like, okay, you're going to do this and it's going to be a difference in time of, 5 to on the fast end to maybe 8 minutes or 9 minutes on the slower end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really more about how fast you can complete it versus how far can you go in a lot of these.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people who are worried about the highest level strength sandbag.
Yeah.
And my response to them has been, you got to get there first.
Right.
Right. It's about 10 minutes of really hard work to get through tier 1, tier 2. I wouldn't even worry about that.
Yeah, try it just so you know what it feels like. But it's really focusing on can you get through the first 2 in the
Mm-hmm.
time frame that you have, and that's what we're seeing in some of the other competitions out there. Is it's you can see what's ahead of you,
Mm-hmm.
but you may not even get there. So that's really going to start pushing it to higher levels to try to get to those last couple pieces of the workouts.
So this year's Open compared to last year's Open, more difficult, less difficult, more technical, less technical?
So I think it's less technical.
Okay.
I think the difficulty on the high end on some of these is a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when we talk about some of the segments, the first parts are going to be pretty comparable to last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've added a little bit more kind of on the end of like strength,
Yeah.
for example, which we didn't have in the regular Open series last year.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else where you kind of build up to that point, I think is pretty comparable.
Okay. Yeah, one of the pieces of feedback I got and took into account when writing it was a lot of people felt like the workouts last year blended together and that there was just a lot of overall endurance.
Yeah.
And so one of the focuses when designing it was speed has dedicated rest, forced rest time.
Yep.
Strength will be as short as 5 minutes for many people.
Yep.
Unless you can move quickly with an amount of weight.
Yeah, and exactly, but it focuses on being able to move that weight, which is very strength based. Exactly.
Well, let's dive into the individuals.
Yeah.
Let's just start with speed. It's a 2-part workout. It starts with 1 minute of row for distance.
Right.
And goes directly into a 1 minute period of a double kettlebell farmer's carry.
Yep.
The total workout is 4 rounds of that. There's 1 minute of rest between each round.
Yeah.
So 12 total minutes, of which 9 are working. What do you think about it, and what is some key strategy that we should talk about early on?
Yeah, so I actually really like this one. I think it's cool because it is focused on speed and really like a sprint, right? You have 1 minute of rowing. You're really, in my mind, it's similar to some of other events like the dry try, where you really want to focus on where can you get your most bang for your buck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we talk about this, your row is going to give you the most meters.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So to me, I feel like you're really going to probably try to sell out on the row for most people,
Okay.
right? To really crank up as many meters as you can. Your farmer's carries, you want to be consistent, but that's also where you're going to breathe a little bit more, right? You want to be able to get off the row. You're going to be panting after that 1 minute, pushing it hard. You start breathing a bit, but you just want to be consistent and try to move that as much as you can during that 1 minute before you get your rest.
So you'd go all out on the row.
I think that, not having tried it yet, that my initial take is, all out on the row because you think about it, if you're rowing like a 2 minute pace,
Mm-hmm.
right, that's 250 meters in a minute,
Yep.
right? can you do a kettlebell carry? Because each length is going to be what, 25 meters? Of the way we're going to block it out.
Each length is 8 meters, 24 feet.
8 meters
so
is how we're doing
and
it.
back is 16 meters.
Yeah, so that's 16 meters. So you got to do that 10, almost 20 times. Right, to get the same amount on your row. And I mean, that's going to fry your grip. So I feel like if you settle on the row going as hard as you can for a minute, get those extra meters and use a little bit of recovery on the farmer's carries. You want to add on there, but that's not where you're going to win it, I don't feel like.
That's true. I think in our testing, we were seeing about 3 times as many row meters as farmers carry meters. I think one thing about this workout that's very sneaky, even though it's just a 2-part couplet, is the grip.
Yeah, well, because I mean, your grip on the row, you're going to burn it holding the farmer's carries, and with the pull motion on the row, you're going to feel it, and that's going to slow you down, even if you can technically sprint it out because you're like trying to hold on.
Right, and I think the cumulative effect of how much pump you have from the pull, you're going to get super pumped double farmer's carry.
Yep.
And you only have a minute between each round.
Yeah, it's really just a reset, breathe a little bit. So, and that's going to be strategic too, right? Do you put the kettlebells down maybe a little early for an extra 10 seconds of rest to try to stretch out?
Yes.
Knowing that, hey, in that 10 seconds, I'm going to get 20 meters, whereas if I crank it out on the rower, I'm going to at least double that.
So are you, like, for you personally, because you're participating in the Open, like, what's your strategy? Give me your pace strategy and give me your kettlebell strategy.
Yeah, so I would definitely, take the full 60 seconds just cranking it, right? I mean, sub 2 minutes for sure, just pulling as much as you can, as hard as you can on the row.
So what's that pace for you?
Gosh.
Knowing yourself.
Knowing myself, I'd probably try to maintain sub 145.
Okay, ouch.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it's going to hurt, but it's a minute. But if I feel like if you can crank it, because you start out pretty hot, and then once you get about 20, 25 seconds in, it's that last second half really where you really feel it and try to maintain. So I feel like I can crank it fast, and it's going to taper off a little bit. But if I can average around a 145 pace for me, I think I'd be pretty happy with it. And then with the farmer's carries, walk over, breathe. Like I said, take the full minute on the row, because sometimes with these transition is included as part of the time.
It is, yeah.
So I would take the transition time in the kettlebells.
Got it.
Right, so full minute on the row. As soon as they tell me stop, then I stop rowing. Then I go into the kettlebells, breathe it for a little bit, and really just try to walk it and see how I'm feeling with that pump. Like you said, maybe the first round, try to do it for the full minute, see how I'm feeling with not having done it for a full minute yet, and see if I do need to maybe plan in some breaks, right? Set it down for a halfway mark, 5 seconds. Breathe, shake it, do another maybe 20, 25 seconds, set it down, and then go back to the rower and kind of recover.
Yeah, there's some interesting, sneaky technical things during my testing it on other people that stuck out to me. One was, are you messing with the foot straps on the rower? Right. Strapping in, you're gonna have time before every round to strap in.
Strap in, yeah.
But it takes a little bit of time, and this is like 3 to 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I learned this in high rocks. It takes about 3 to 5 seconds for you to pull the foot straps out, take yourself out, and then get out.
Yep.
For me personally, if I were doing this competitively, I would just leave them somewhat done. I wouldn't even mess with it.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you're going to lose on your speed. For me, it's the back half of that pull, and your feet are going to come up just a little bit.
Right.
So there's a little bit of flexion, ankle flexion. But 3 to 5 seconds in only a 2-minute work window.
Yeah, it is a lot. Yeah. And I think people should kind of play with that. Can you get it tight enough where you can still slip out fairly quickly without having to adjust them? And are you comfortable with that while you're rowing at a higher speed, right? Try it. Because some people may be comfortable enough with it. Others be like, I need it a little bit tighter.
The other big thing that I experienced in testing is because, and this is our first ever video recorded workout. So there's standards that are being laid out, and I think they're going to be released soon. But one of the standards is that there will be 2 cones, and that you have to visibly go behind each one, so that we can see in video. Because of the way that it's laid out with the cones 24 feet apart, I wouldn't go the extra length away from the rower, if this makes sense.
Okay.
So assuming that my rower is next to cone A, going all the way down and leaving it there, say at the end of my minute.
Right. Yeah, you'd actually you'd leave it close.
I would leave it close
just
to the rower.
Just give up those meters.
Because then you have that dead like 5 to 7 seconds just going to get
the start. Yeah.
And the other thing, and I've been tinkering with this just in my own trials, is going a little bit wider around the kettlebell
Okay.
and
You mean around the cone?
Yes, around the cone. Trying to carry some momentum, like dipping into it a little bit, because one of the hardest things to do is go to full stop,
Turn
full
around and
start,
start
full
going.
stop,
Yeah.
full start. So even if you could practice trying to do a little bit of like a figure 8 around the kettlebell,
Yep.
going a little bit wider and seeing if you can carry some momentum, it maybe buys you a couple feet.
Yeah.
It's not that much. But the start-stop is really difficult, and it's harder on your shoulders
That's
because
true,
the
'cause
weight
you got-
stops
yep.
and then you readjust it as opposed to leaning forward.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, trying to pivot as opposed to stopping and turning around, and like you said, a couple extra steps, but it could really save some of what you're going to gas out with the shoulders and the grip.
Yeah. Let's see, first timers, beginners going into this, it's probably the most approachable workout and something that is just it's two very simple things that they've heard of before. Any last pieces of advice before we talk about strength?
I would say, I mean, it is very approachable. If you're in the gym, just try it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Row for a minute, kettlebell for a minute. It's, just to get a feel for it before you actually want to throw down 4 rounds. It's easy enough just to kind of get an idea of what it's going to feel like. That one's really easy to do, really wherever you are.
Yeah, and I think repeats is a great thing to do.
Yep.
Right, you have 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest. Playing with that amount of time and then putting yourself in a position where you're a little bit uncomfortable. You only have 1 minute to recover.
Yep.
And getting used to what that feels like, because round 1 versus round 4 feels entirely different on
It
your
is.
body.
You're right.
Right, round 4 you're like, I can't even hold on to this thing. How am I going to hold on to the rower?
Yep. And 1 minute of trying to breathe is like, I still really can't breathe, and you're already panting before you even start.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think one last tip that I would give people, especially beginners, is if you can put more into your legs as opposed to gripping really hard and pulling, save whatever amount of your grip you can. I mean, whether it's stopping your kettlebell carry just a little bit early.
Yeah. Maybe not doing a full pull all the way up to your chest, right? More legs, pull here, and not really drive. Yeah. That's a good point too. Making really sure you engage those legs on the rower, because some people tend to be upper body dominant with it.
Yeah.
Focusing on form.
And really, honestly, the kettlebell carry is not a leg dominant move. Like, it's going to hit your traps, it's going to hit your grip. And so, like, use your legs while you have them. You have them on your row. And then also just know your damper. If you know, like, a lot of people have been asking me, should I just go straight to 10 on the damper? A minute is a really long time to stay at a 10 damper, and it's very taxing.
And we're going for meters. We're going for meters, not calories. Usually, you talk about a higher damper on calories because you're trying to crank them out faster.
Yeah.
Whereas here, one of the things we've talked about a lot is if you're not maxing out that damper anyway consistently, drop it down, because you're just going for meters at that point. You're just trying to go for distance.
Right. Yep. All right. Let's dig into strength. It's a 3-part workout. There's definitely a lot of technical stuff to go through. But it's 3 tiers. So minutes 0 to 5 is starting with a 75-pound strongman sandbag, which is the round sandbag for men, and a 50-pounder for women in all divisions. It's 5 sandbags on top of a 30-inch box, and then 5 bear hug squats. So you're holding it in front of you, squatting. Yep. And then 5 lunges per leg. So let's start with just the first tier. There are 2 potential unlocks that you could do, making it up to a 13-minute workout. But what do you think? What is your takeaway for minutes 0 to 5?
Yeah, so with this one, obviously I think the easiest part is going to be the sandbag to the box, right? It's just making sure you get under it and pulling it up, because it's only a 30-inch lift, right? And I think it honestly gets a little more challenging with each move. So the bear hug, I think, is going to be the second hardest, because you got to get it up. You need to, front rack it basically and hold on to it, and get your depth on your squats. And then the other part is you got to get that back all the way up to your shoulder, and then you're lunging with it. So it actually seems to me like during each of those rounds, it does get progressively harder as far as the move goes.
And it's 5 rounds, which I should have pointed out.
Exactly. So you're ended up doing 25 reps of these in 5 minutes total if you get through everything. So it's I haven't tried this one yet, and I'm really interested to see how that first 5 minutes even feels. Because 75 pounds isn't terrible, but it's not light either, and you're compressing it down. A lot of people could front squat, and they may be playing with the barbell with more weight than that, so it's not hard-ish, but I think the accumulation effect is going to hit really quickly on this one.
Yeah, there's a few
I think that's how you
sneaky
designed
things.
it, kind of, right?
There's a few sneaky things. So, one, for example, if you're a stronger athlete, it's not going to impact you as much. But if you're working really hard to hold on to the sandbag, like in a front position,
It's hard to breathe.
it's hard to breathe.
Yeah, and it's really you're crushing it in, and you're not only using that engagement to hold it, but then you're also pressing against your
Right.
diaphragm and everything else. So it's like you're trying to pan just a little bit to get those squats done really quickly so you can breathe again.
Yeah, and this is one of those ones where 5 minutes, 5 rounds, you got to round a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
If you want to pace
so
it
you
that
need
way
to
do
move
it. Yeah.
consistently pretty quickly.
Yep.
Even if 75 pounds is light for you, you have 2 lunges per rep, a left and a right.
Exactly.
So it's really 5, 10, 20 movements
Yep.
per minute.
Yep.
So just being like super efficient, and one of the things I noticed in testing on myself and seeing others do it, the bear hug squat really got them.
Yeah.
To the point where bear hug squat and then having to set it down and then putting it up on their shoulder as opposed to trying to bear hug squat and lunge.
And go straight up.
Yeah, because that's the preferred position. But there's a lot of lost time in the transition from move 1 to 2 to 3.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
they're not breathing very well, and so that workout can get out of hand pretty quickly. Where you might do the first round in 40 seconds, the second round takes a minute 20,
Right.
and now all of a sudden you're under the gun. You got
yeah.
a minute per round.
And your second round was already longer than that, so you're trying to make up
Yeah.
time to stay on target.
And like I said, so many people have come to me, and the first thing they say is so what does it look like to clean a 150-pound sandbag? And my first question is, have you done rounds 1 and 2
Yeah.
yet? Because that might not be your problem.
Right.
Right? Yes, it is a problem if you get there, but I think getting there is significantly underestimated
Yeah.
for people.
So I got a question. I was actually looking through this, and I
Yeah.
think this is a good time to ask it. So when you're doing the bags up to the box,
Mhm.
right? If you get your 5th round, does a rep from the box count going up and down, or does
Yeah,
that
so-
last rep end when you put it on top of the box? for
On
the fifth
top,
round?
so the bag will start on the bottom position.
Yep.
So you'll be completing the rep on the top of the box on the 5th
So
rep.
when you do the 5th rep, it's on top of the box. You can actually take it from the top of the box
Straight
to
into your bear
right?
hug, yep.
And then you have the option, like you said. Actually, here's another question: if you want to transition, instead of going directly from the bear hug up to your shoulder,
Mhm.
do you have to put it on the ground, or can I go from a bear hug and put it on top of the box and then reset it?
We're allowing use of the box.
Okay, since it's there.
It is, and in testing, it is significantly more difficult than you would think to take that bag you're holding in front and
Yep.
just shuck it on top of your shoulder.
Okay.
It's definitely the fastest way, but you're going to kind of burn some energy
Okay.
doing it. The other thing that's important to note, we're allowing reverse lunges, and the lunges are stationary.
Okay.
So you can't just go march out 5 reps and back 5 reps.
Okay.
Um,
Stationary, alternating legs, either forward or reverse.
Yes.
Okay.
I think reverse is faster personally and a
Yeah.
little bit less taxing. I think, I think it just takes just a little bit longer to get out and back
Okay.
versus dropping
Down and just
directly
drop
into
it
a
over
reverse
back.
lunge.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think practice. If you have something that's similar without handles
Yeah.
versus you could do it in the gym here,
Yep.
just getting used to it and then doing it for speed, basically.
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. Doing it as quickly as you can to try it, especially if you're doing that first 5 minutes.
Right.
Practice doing it quickly to see what the time takes you to finish all 5 rounds. Just do it for time, and see if you're under that 5-minute cap or
Yeah.
not.
Right, because if you get it done under the 5, you've got another 5 minutes starting at minute 5:01. You can start the second part.
Right.
But let's say you get it done in 4 minutes, you've got a minute of rest.
Right. Before you start again. Okay.
But you've got to have a really quick movement speed, right? We talked about how many reps was it per round? 5, 10?
20.
20, so
Yeah.
that's one movement per
Three
every
seconds.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're doing one movement every 2 seconds, you might be able to bake in a little bit of rest.
Yeah. But that's
How long
not
is it going
much.
to take you to recover from that? And yeah, it's
Yeah.
not much. Because I think as you bleed into that second round, I think we're going to see a lot of athletes who just work so hard to get that first 5 minutes done
Yep.
that when the second 5 minutes gets unlocked, they're going to be like, oh my gosh.
Now, are we doing, as far as when we talk about ranking, are we going to do kind of tie break, meaning your time finishing that first round?
Yeah.
Are we going to capture that time as well as the number of reps?
Yeah,
Yes.
so the hierarchy of score goes your total cleans at the third unlock,
Yep.
your total time at the second, your total time in the first.
Okay.
Right? So they're each kind of their own workout.
Yeah.
There's a hierarchy of the getting to the third workout and completing the most reps is the best.
Right.
And then if there was a tie in the first workout,
Yep.
the tiebreaker is your time in the second.
Okay.
So
Good.
if you get to it and you just got one clean at 150 at the end, but you were a 450 and they were a 430, they would be ranked higher.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So the second tier, okay, so let's just assume
Yeah.
you got it done,
Yeah.
right? You're straight into the
Right.
next. We've got a 48-inch box wall.
Yep.
Okay, so it's two 24-inch boxes. It's they're four wide by 2 tall.
Yep.
Right, and they're bungeed together. And now you've moved up. Your 75-pound bag for a man becomes 100. For a woman, your 50 becomes a 75. So
Yep.
you're moving more weight now. Same amount of time, another 5 minutes.
Right.
Less movements.
Yep. We only have 10 movements total this time.
Yep. And it's going to be more about like how efficiently you can move a heavier weight. Should reward the stronger athlete.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on the second tier, and what are your tips?
Yeah, so and actually I was looking at this again. It's really more like 15 reps because the second part is the sandbag and person over the wall. So one,
Yeah.
you got to get the sandbag over, and then you have to get yourself over. So because you're not going to be really, most people aren't going to do that in one fluid motion.
Mhm.
You're going to get that sandbag, and then you're going to go and follow it. So I think that'll obviously slow things down a little bit. You know, the 100-pound is tough, especially all the way up to the shoulder.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very dense, kind of somewhat awkward weight because
Mhm.
these bags are pretty compressed. So not only do you have to get under it, but then you've got to work to get it all the way up to your shoulder versus even just getting it to your chest or like the bear hug position.
Yep.
And kind of the same thing. Once you do 5 of those, you're essentially getting that same motion almost to be able to get it to the top of the box and to get it over the wall,
Mhm.
right? So it's once again, you're already tired from the first 5 minutes. It's going to be really how conditioning when it comes to strength. You know,
Mhm.
how effective are you at moving that weight when you're tired? Because at that point, most people are going to be tired to some point,
Yep.
and it's
Fatigue's
getting heavier.
factor.
Fatigue is going to be a big factor. So to your point, this one I think you really just need to try, see how you can do on the first one, because it is only a short 5 minute. If you get under the 5 minutes, then maybe practice even if with that weight, just getting it up high, right? You don't even need to practice with the wall, because I think you getting over the wall takes a little bit of time. It's a rep. Most people can get over the 4-foot wall because it's the nice cushy boxes, so you can kind
Mhm.
of roll over. But it's going to be practicing getting that weight from the ground up to your shoulder, because once it's your shoulder, that's the first set. Otherwise, it's your shoulder and on top of the box, essentially.
Yeah, there's a few things I think that can save some people some time, but it's definitely worth messing with to see, depending on the type of athlete you are, how much it taxes you. One is if you're strong enough and this doesn't hurt you, keeping your hand underneath the bag the whole time and standing straight up with it with no middle bear hug position is
Right.
the fastest.
Sure.
It's also significantly more taxing than going here, getting your breath, and then going back.
Bring it up.
Right? So, I mean, if you can, just basically essentially muscle it from the ground with your hands up to full stand,
Yeah,
back
drop it.
down, up to full stand.
Yeah.
That's definitely the fastest, but I think that could catch up to you
Yeah.
and smack you before you start you're gonna be looking at that box like, I got to go over that thing now, and I can't breathe.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and to me, it's once again 100 pounds. If we're putting on a barbell, like throwing it up to your shoulder on like a clean or something, isn't terrible for some people. But this dense weight, awkward,
Yeah,
not really
very
anything to
awkward.
grab. You're kind of getting your hands underneath of it because it's going to be kind of flat and pancaking on the ground. So you got to kind of roll it and massage it to get underneath of it to
Yep.
really get a good grip on it too. It's not
Yeah.
like there's handles you can just grab or do anything with it either.
Yeah, I know that number one thing people have said to me is, I wish there was just handles on these. That's kind of the whole point.
Yeah.
It's an odd object clean, and it's very functional, which
Yes.
is the focus this year. It was a lot of functional movements. One other thing I think that is a real important thing to practice is your technique. So after you finish your 5th clean, which can go pretty fast. I've seen people do them as fast as 10 seconds. I've seen that bleed into 45 seconds if people
Okay.
are tired, right?
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do around a minute, for example, because it's a 5-minute workout,
Yep.
5 rounds, after your 5th rep, are you taking it and just throwing it straight over the box, or are you setting it on top of the box, getting yourself over the box, picking it up off the top of the box, tapping it on the ground, and going back up?
Obviously, the tap is going to be faster.
Yeah.
But once again, it comes down to, can you, with the odd object, get it off the top of the box in a grip where you can tap it and then move it again.
Yep.
And I think for a lot of people, that is going to be extremely difficult. I think most people are going to have to get it to the ground and reset to get it up again.
Yeah.
I just think that the amount of strength and effort it takes to secure it from the top of the box down to the ground to tap it and back up, by this point is going to be really, really challenging.
And it's honestly significantly more work. It's faster, but
Right.
there's an eccentric motion of controlling the bag from the top down and then back up
Yep.
versus just letting
Letting it
gravity
fall.
do its thing. You have to get back under the bag and then get over.
Right.
So that amount of time though is not very taxing. So it's, again, if you're a stronger athlete and this weight doesn't mess with you much, set it on top of the box, get yourself some rest, and get ready for that next round.
Yep, pop it and do it again, and same
Yep.
thing, breathe
Top,
as you go over.
back down, and then back up, then get yourself over.
Yep.
So basically, whenever you're transitioning, the bag's on top of the box.
Yep.
But that's one thing that you should test and know about yourself going in.
Yeah.
Like,
How do you feel
it's
with that amount of
essentially
weight?
twice as much time under tension
Yeah.
with the weight.
Yep.
Technique getting over the box. What are your thoughts?
You know, with these, I like essentially a roll where you want to try to get your chest and most of your core and just kind of slide over, right? You kind of
Mhm.
kick your feet, get your chest on and twist over, so that way you're spinning and twisting to drop it over.
Mhm.
To me, that's the least taxing, least
Mhm.
amount of effort. It kind of resets you pretty quickly, because if you kind of roll and spin, by the time your feet come down, you're essentially facing the box or facing the bag, so you're not kind of going all the way up pushing. You don't need to spend any extra time or effort to get up higher on the box. You're just essentially trying to, almost like a bar or a log, where you're kind of rolling and sliding. I would
Mhm.
say that to me would be the most efficient and least amount of effort.
Okay. You know, one thing that we had a box wall in last year's Open Speed.
We did.
And one thing that was really critical for people in speed was, if you can, place the bag diagonal across from you.
Yep.
Assuming you have a box here and your body's here and your feet are going over to the other side, you don't want to be landing your feet on top of that odd object. In
Yeah.
fact, we had some people sprain their ankles
Yep.
landing on top. So if you can place it in the opposite location of where your feet will go as
Yeah.
you shimmy over that, it might save you a little bit of time, you know, for opposed to landing on the bag, moving out of the way, then getting under and setting it over.
Yeah.
It might save a couple seconds.
Yeah, and the other thought of that is, if you leave the bag on top, even if you're not going to do the eccentric motion down, put it on top, your face
Oh,
is
that's
kind
a
of
great
towards the bag,
idea.
and then drop it where you're ready, and then you can pick it up and you
Yep.
kind of see where it falls.
Just like pull it down to the ground.
Exactly. So that may be another option, as long as you put it on one side so that you have enough room to get your body over. You can
Mhm.
reset, drop it, and then pick it up, even if you're not controlling it down.
So mathing this out, and then we'll wrap it up and talk about the next two next week.
Yeah.
Mathing this out, you've got 15, 20 seconds to do the shoulder high cleans. So it leaves
Yeah.
you with maybe
30 to 40.
30 to 40 seconds to get over that wall with
Yeah.
the bag another 5 times.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's
I mean,
gonna be
it's
really tight.
It is really tight, because, you know, even just kind of touching these bags sometimes in the gym, getting under them and setting up is more challenging than you would think, right? So I think that's going to actually sap more time than people would expect, and is going to cause the reps to take longer if they have to break them up
Yeah.
and reset, because getting your hands under them and getting ready to do the motion, it's not like a nice little bar where it's there, set your hands, you can grab it and go. This one, it's going to be on the ground, you got to get underneath of it and really work for that before you can even move the weight.
Yeah, one thing I'd really recommend is that athletes do the whole thing just for time.
Yeah.
Like, take the clock off, go do the whole thing so that you know what it feels like when you get to that stage.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a tendency, just like with the 150-pound bag, assuming you get to that at the
Yeah.
10-minute mark, where they're like, oh, I'm fresh and I can lift a 150-pound bag.
Yeah.
Well, what about what it
10
feels
minutes
like
later.
after you've done all of these other reps?
Yeah.
Just to get there is so much extra work. And
Yeah.
that'd be part of my advice, is like, go through the whole thing, see how you fatigue, see what hurts you, see where you can breathe, and then go back and start trying to math out, like, where can I save time?
Yeah, if you're a little over, yeah, if can you trim it to get there? I mean, honestly, even looking at this for myself, knowing where I'm at, getting to that third portion, I have some concerns whether I can do that or not, just with the time caps that are there. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting when I can to try it and just see, like you said, I'm going to go through the first set and the second set, see what my time looks like. But I mean, if that's already hitting even, 12, 13 minutes, can I shave off 2 minutes, tracking where I am? That's going to be a big question mark. So I honestly don't even know if I will get to that third section.
That's probably the best approach, is
Yeah.
here's how long it would take me if I was just going and there was no clocks.
Yeah,
that were
here's the first
forcing-
set. Then, capture your changeover, right? Once you
Uh-huh.
finish that first grouping of 5 rounds, mark your time there, and then keep going and finish your second set of rounds, and just note both times. And then you can, like you said, analyze it. Are there places where I can save a little bit of time?
Mhm.
Could I go harder maybe on the first set
Mhm.
to give myself a little bit of breathing time before I hit the second set, and really just see where you are?
Okay, so before we wrap up,
Yeah.
give me your predictions on the first two. Any athletes that you think this is a shoe-in, this is built for them, and like what is the highest scores that you think we'll see on both the men's and women's sides for these first two workouts?
Oh man. Well, let's see. If I were to estimate the first workout, 3, 6, 9, 12 plus, you said 16 meters per length. I think some of our top times on the first workout maybe between 1,500 and 2,000 meters.
Whew, 2,000 is cooking.
2,000 is a lot. I mean, that's what I said. That to me is the
Yeah.
high end. I think we're going to see, a lot of strong athletes kind of hit that 1,500 marks. To me, that's getting close to 300 meters on the row and about 10 laps of the farmers carries. Just kind of mapping it out,
Yep,
right?
Yep.
So that to me puts you kind of that 1,500 mark, and those athletes that can exceed some of that is where you're going to start pushing it. So that would be kind of my estimate on some of the higher end. When we're talking about strength, I mean, we've got a lot of strong guys, and I think it's going to come down to how they do. I don't even know if I have a lot of estimates here. I think I'm willing to say we're going to see a lot fewer people hit that third round than we even think. I mean, if we've got 30 people going after it, I think you're going to see maybe 5 of them hit that third round.
Yeah, I would.
That's kind of where I'm thinking.
less,
It's really hard for me to say because I don't know who all signed up just yet. But so we could have a really good mix of people. So it's hard to say there. But I really feel like based on the numbers, we're looking at probably 10 to 15% even hitting that third round. To be honest with you, for strength.
I think so. Here's my predictions. In speed, I think we're going to see the top men, averaging like in the low to mid 300s per row.
Yeah, I was estimating about 300.
And like maybe 75, 80 meters per walk. So that'd be 10, right?
Yep.
But I think what we're going to see is there's a lot of people who are bigger, stronger guys who can row really fast
Right.
for a minute.
Okay.
Who really fade on rounds 3 and 4.
Okay.
Because that cumulative effect.
Is going to hit them
yeah.
pretty hard, do you think?
Because I mean, only a minute of rest. The first time, not a big deal. The second time, oof, that went a little faster. And the third time, you're like, oh my gosh. Like,
I'm back already.
Has it been a minute? I think the women we're going to see in the low, mid to third quarter of twos, like 250 up to 275 for strong rowers.
Yep.
And then the women's weight being double 35-pound kettlebells. We have some women who have some really good farmers carries. So I actually think we'll see some really good carry
Maybe a little more on
scores.
the carries on those.
And then on the strength side, I think we're only going to see maybe 1 out of every 10 athletes who even get to the third tier.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 out of every 2 to 3 athletes who get to the second tier.
Okay.
I just think that the movement speed required with the weight is probably the most underestimated thing. And we tried to put the times like right on that razor's edge of like.
You really had to push it. Not only is it strength, but you got to be able to keep moving with that weight consistently the whole time.
And I do think what's going to happen is we'll have a good chunk of people who get through that first 5-minute block, open up the second 5 minutes, and just die.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they need to do a minute per round in the second tier, and I think we're going to see people clocking 2 to 3
minutes,
minute rounds, and they're just going to be like, oh my god, like I can't go.
Yeah, I think I can definitely see that for sure.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I do think we have some stronger women who will be entering this year, compared to last year. And registration's still going, and so we'll start talking about them as we start seeing scores come in.
Yeah, definitely.
And we'll start looking at and reviewing their technique as we start seeing other people go through this. But what I've seen in trials and testing, I think that we might see a few men who get to that heavier sandbag.
Right.
And I think our contingent of women might be stronger this year. I think we might see a few more women in the third tier of the workout than we do see men.
Okay.
Which I would hope to see.
Yeah, that would be great to see. That would be really exciting.
So yeah, and I think I also think we're going to see a lot of interesting splits in speed based on the type of athlete. I think the stronger athletes are going to put up some fantastic 1 and 2 round scores.
Right.
I think the more endurance athletes will have it all broken down to where they're putting up very similar scores each round, and they've kind of figured it out. They've mapped it out. I'm sure there'll be spreadsheets flying around.
Yeah, I know a few that probably like that. Yeah.
These are my paces. This is what I'm going to do. Versus the I'm just going to go as hard as I humanly can for just a couple minutes, and then I'll figure it out when I get there in minutes 7 and 8. So, anyway, Steve, any closing thoughts before we wrap up today's Brix and Brews?
The only thing I'll say is I'm pretty excited. I haven't tested any of this stuff yet, so seeing these workouts just get released over the past week or so, I'm excited to be able to kind of get in and just start practicing a little bit, throw it down over the next few weeks to get a baseline, and then get ready for when the Open comes here April 1st.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to talking more about Agility and Endurance, which are both released. I think Endurance came out today.
It did. Yep, brand new one out.
And so we can talk more about those and the technique. There's definitely a ton to unpack there. And just the approach, and I think there's also a lot of time that people have to get ready for this. So now that people have this and they have kind of a sense of what they need to do to get ready and start figuring out their times so that when it comes time for testing, they're ready to go.
Yeah, full 3 weeks to kind of work through it is a good amount of time just to help get you ready. See, like I said, set your baseline, see how you feel, see what the workouts are going to be like. And then that way you can actually put a plan together too when you come to the official test, or whether you're videoing it or coming in the gym.
Yep. All right, man. Until next week.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, take care, man.